For most of Watertown, the lockdown had just lifted. A city that had spent the day sealed shut was starting, carefully, to breathe again. David Henneberry stepped into his own backyard for the first time since morning. He noticed something off about the boat. The wrap loose, the straps cut. He looked closer and saw blood. He didn't go near it. He called 911. What he didn't know yet, the most wanted man in America may have been in his backyard the entire time the search happened somewhere else. This would later get a simple nickname, the 100-hour manhunt. But the real chase, from photograph to capture, took barely a day. To understand how it got this fast, we have to go back to where it started. April 15, 2013, Marathon Monday in Boston. Crowds packed Boylston Street near the finish line. Runners, families, kids on shoulders. The kind of ordinary civic joy this race had delivered for over a century. At 2:49 p.m., 2 pressure cooker bombs exploded near the finish line. Moments apart, Martin Richard, 8 years old, Crystal Campbell, 29, Lingzi Liu, 23. All 3 killed within moments. More than 260 others were injured. In an instant, a celebration became a crime scene, and nobody yet knew who was responsible. What followed wasn't a single investigation. It was thousands of them, all at once. Spectator phones, marathon broadcast cameras, storefront security feeds. Investigators had to comb through an overwhelming volume of footage, frame by frame, hunting for 2 figures in a sea of strangers. The pressure wasn't only to find the bombers, it was to do it without letting fear and speculation take over a grieving city. For 3 days, Boston waited for a name, a face, anything solid to hold on to. On April 18th, the FBI made its move. They released 2 images to the public, Suspect 1 and Suspect 2. A man in a dark cap, a man in a white one walking calmly through the marathon crowd hours before the bombs went off. It was meant to narrow the search. Instead, it set off something the FBI couldn't fully control. Online, amateur sleuths on Reddit and 4chan had already been running their own manhunt. One name spread fast, Sunil Tripathi, a missing college student who matched nothing about the actual suspects. He had already died by his own hand days before the bombing. His family endured a wave of online accusation while they were still searching for him themselves. It's one of the manhunt's hardest lessons. A crowd convinced its helping can do real damage to people who had nothing to do with any of it. Within hours of those photos going public, the real suspects would force the case into the open by killing again. That night, the brothers approached a parked police cruiser on the MIT campus. Inside was Officer Sean Collier, sitting alone. They tried to take his weapon. His retention holster held, it didn't release. And in that struggle, they shot him. He died at the scene. Minutes later, just blocks away, they carjacked a Mercedes SUV, forcing the driver inside at gunpoint. The bombing case had just become something else. An active, moving threat, with 2 armed men loose in a major American city. The driver, Meng, spent the next stretch of the night as a hostage in his own car. Inside, one of the brothers told him plainly they were behind the marathon bombing, and they weren't finished. They talked about driving to New York, to Times Square, with explosives still in the vehicle. Boston's tragedy had just widened into something far bigger than Boston. Meng saw his chance during a stop for gas. He slipped out and ran. Police used the SUV's GPS to follow it, and minutes later, the manhunt had a location. They were about to find out the brothers had no intention of surrendering quietly. In the early hours of April 19th, police caught up with the brothers on a residential street in Watertown. What followed wasn't a clean operation, it was chaos. Explosives thrown at officers, gunfire in a quiet neighborhood, families waking up to a war zone outside their windows. Tamerlan Tsarnaev was tackled by police. As officers struggled with him, Dzhokhar drove the stolen SUV directly at the scene, running over his own brother in the process. Dzhokhar escaped into the dark. Tamerlan was pronounced dead at 1:35 a.m. One brother was gone. The more dangerous question remained, where was the other one? By morning, Governor Deval Patrick had done something Boston had never seen. He ordered an entire metro area to shelter in place. Transit stopped, businesses closed. Streets that should have been full of Friday morning traffic sat completely empty. Tactical teams swept block by block through Watertown and the surrounding suburbs, going door to door. It was the most visible show of police power Boston had ever seen. And it still wasn't enough. By evening, the order was lifted. The search teams had covered an enormous amount of ground, and they hadn't found him. Roughly 45 minutes after the lockdown lifted, David Henneberry stepped into his backyard. This is where we started. The cut straps, the blood on the tarp, the phone call to 911. Inside the boat, named Slipaway 2, police found Dzhokhar Tsarnaev wounded and hiding in a yard the search had already passed by. After a tense standoff, he was taken alive. Not a tactical breakthrough, not a tip line. One homeowner noticing one thing that didn't look right. The manhunt had an ending. The legal case did not for a long time. In 2015, Dzhokhar Tsarnaev was convicted on all 30 federal counts. On May 15th, a jury recommended a death sentence. In 2020, an appeals court overturned that sentence. 2 years later, the Supreme Court reinstated it, 6-3. Even that wasn't the final word. Questions about juror bias sent parts of the case back for further review. Litigation that, as of this telling, is still not fully resolved. Dzhokhar Tsarnaev remains on federal death row, but his legal story isn't closed. The manhunt cost more than the 3 people killed on Boylston Street. Officer Sean Collier never went home. MBTA. Officer Richard Donahue was critically wounded but survived. Officer Dennis Simmons, hurt in the Watertown shootout, died from his injuries the following year. There was no foreign network behind this. No trained cell. No escape plan. 2 young men radicalized themselves, funded themselves, and built their bombs from instructions in Inspire, an English-language Al-Qaeda magazine, in a city under near total surveillance, cameras everywhere, online sleuths everywhere, thousands of officers in the streets. The breakthrough still came down to one man looking at his own boat. Victims first, certainty second, spectacle last. That's the manhunt Boston actually lived through.